Dia?
You wish.
Yes, DEA.
DEA.
Yeah.
I should have brought my finals, my son finals for you to sign.
Yay, thank you. And maybe another one for my friend later. Okay, so I've prepared. Oh yeah, makasih. Ito punya ako. Okay, so first question is, what is your experience with Indonesian traditional music? Like, have you ever explored?
Yeah, just casually as a music fan, you know. I mean, there's plenty of CDs and LPs in my collection of gamelan music, of course. I mean,
Of course,
it's
yeah.
kind of gamelan music. I don't know much about it, but it's kind of one thing that I discovered after getting into minimalist music, because it's so referenced by like John Cage, Morton Feldman, and that generation of minimalist composers. So as a form of microtonal music that they were inspired by, things like that. I released some music on my label. Well, it's not Indonesia, but Papua New Guinea.
Yeah. Fine.
It's culturally very different, I know, but I released some kind of shamanic flute music from that this ethnomusicologist recorded in the 70s and stuff. And apparently that's the style of the music that he recorded that we released doesn't really exist anymore, because the people he was recording, like, the next generation didn't care about it. No one learned how to do it. He just told me that recently, but I understand there's many cultures here, many types of music. So I'm a huge music fan. I mean, I love music. I'm a music fanatic, and I love discovering new music. So it's very exciting to try to learn about. I mean, there's always so much to learn about when you visit a new place, and music is always a great way for me to kind of try and connect in different ways with philosophy and spirituality and creativity and these types of things through music, traditional or modern, you know.
Yeah, so you said in an interview for The Wire that music is a sort of spiritual exercise of art. So Indonesia has an interesting relationship with music as a vessel for spirituality, just like Wok said, like, you know, the Sufi thing. Would you consider these types of sounds having the same, like, transcendence as your music?
My music? No, I
Yeah.
wouldn't compare my music to something like that. I think historically music is always connected to religious or spiritual, at least ceremonial thing, or traditional ritual and types of things like that. It's only modern times that, hey, see you later. It's just in the last century, really, where it's kind of separated from the sacred part into popular culture. But I think it still plays the same role in popular culture that it did 300 years ago in a traditional village ceremony or something. I mean, the human beings haven't evolved out of that type of psychology. It's just been placed in a different area because of capitalism, consumer, urban mentality. But those necessities are still there. That's why I said that I think it's a spiritual exercise, because music is one of the moments that you can, as a player or a listener, really go into another space outside of
Yeah.
where you are in the present moment. So.
Yeah, because I'm Javanese, and we have this traditional shadow puppet play called wayang, and also in Bali there's a ritual called calon arang. I think you're Balinese, right? Yeah, calon arang. And I don't know, when listening to your music, sometimes it reminds me of those, you know, those rituals. So I think
That's what's interesting, because I wouldn't ever say that our music is connected to that. But for the listener, it doesn't really matter what I say or what we're doing, because it's not even a triangle between, well, there's kind of a triangle. Our music, the listener, and your reference, except there's no link between me and your reference. But you're the listener, you're having an experience, so that's great that there is a connection there somehow, that you can related to something a bit deeper. This sort of connection is a compliment, I think. Yeah. But I'm interested to hear that and trying to understand what that connection may be, or from your point of view. You know what I mean?
Well, I can't really explain it in words. It's just like
Exactly.
yeah.
That's why there's music.
Yeah. Okay, second question. In consequenceofsound.net, there was an interview that discussed Canon and what happened a few days before its release, which is the Paris shooting.
Yeah.
You're also in Paris when the Charlie Hebdo shooting happened,
Yeah.
and then you released your solo fuck fundamentalist pics.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with what's happening with the world politics, like Trump, since you're from the U.S., and the election in France, since you live in Paris,
Yeah.
right? Do you think that musicians in genres such as noise, doom, or any genre actually should be more involved in politics? Like, what are the role of musicians in politics?
That's a difficult question I've been asking myself in the last several years. I mean, most musicians have zero influence on politics, but I think that music can serve a role or serve a purpose that is beyond that kind of mundane, normal, regular society ill. There's always a political problem going on in every society, because there's a conflict by the people in power to make the perception that there's a dissonance all the time. That's how they stay in their position and compete with each other. But music can be beyond that. You could have it. I found with San that I think it's more important that we exist as a live group right now, because people come to the concert for a reason.
Yeah.
Which I'm not sure what it is exactly with each person, but there's some there is some fulfillment from having that experience for the audience, certainly, because there's more people coming. Why? There's some hole being filled there, and it doesn't have to do with politics, doesn't have to do with Trump, doesn't have to do with right-wing, wackos in France, or people from Belgium who are so fucked up they want to shoot cartoonists down in the name of some fantasy. It's just like it's all these things are incredible in their own way. But some there are, of course, very notable exceptions as far as musicians that have political power, but we're not one of them. I think the message that we can give is more valuable when it's a message of you can be creative, you can do these things, you can be free with your imagination, you can approach something very intensely in a way that doesn't involve violence or even aggression, but it can have a very, very intense quality to it, or personality to it. And then any view you have on politics, just take it back into the mundane, day-to-day life. Keep this as a kind of sacred thing, in its way, without making it too precious as well. Not escape. That's also a word that gets placed in there that I think is a bit dangerous too, because you're not trying to escape anything. It's just another way of having a richer point of view on the world. If you're just completely obsessed with the political situation, with the news, absorbing all of the information being pumped down your throat, you're going to be afraid of everything, and your life isn't going to be so colorful. Where if you step away from it, and look at what's the real situation, and not just the society, but the world, the universe, the cosmos, and all these things. I mean, of course, it's much more colorful.
I was actually in France when the Charlie Hebdo happened, and then I was raised Muslim as well, so that sort of had a personal impact for me, because
but it doesn't really have, in my opinion, it's not really about being Muslim or not. It's about a problem with capitalism, and keeping people down economically. So those people who are doing those events, they're marginalized communities of immigrants, their parents were, who integrated into the society and stuff, and then they're the children of that, and because of their name and stuff, it's hard to get a job or whatever, and they're living in these situations where it's kind of like, what do you do? You're just like a nobody, and getting brainwashed to, you could be a hero, like this is the education you have is to become an individual on this level, so I don't think that really has to do with religion, really. Religion's a nice way to paint it and create conflict by the politicians, but it's not like, 99% of Muslims are against this or something like that. I think it's a very strong tool to create division in a culture that's much more sophisticated, really. But there's just too many people in the world. That's the other problem. So.
Okay. So next question is: I read that Cannon's liner was written by Aliza, a feminist. Aliza, a feminist who considered your music as a gender-binding representation in metal. How did you discover her writing, and did that make you reflect more on genres and genders?
That was really interesting. I came across a piece she wrote. Someone had sent it to me. It was published in this Brooklyn kind of based philosophy kind of zine. And she mentioned some Sun music in context of her. It's kind of a crossing of feminism, art criticism, and philosophy. And she's a real intellectual, but I don't really understand exactly where she's coming from.
Okay.
But on the other hand, I was really touched and impressed by the fact that her subjectivity to our music was so different than anything I'd read before. Like, this is really interesting. Just that aspect, the creativity can be expressed in a way that's a lot different than other people have written about it and stuff. So I wrote to her and told her that, and she was like, "Oh," and she's a fan. She's like, "Oh, that's great. I'm glad you like my writing." And I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, you're a doctor, whatever, art criticism or something." Then she came to Paris to do research at the Centre Pompidou one summer, and let's have a coffee and stuff. And we met up a few times. Really, really cool lady. I'm like, and the concept of that album was working with some of these topics, actually, that we've been going over. And some of the titling, started working with the canon aspect of the Buddha as just as a metaphor, of it's the personification of the merciful Buddha, one of them in a way. But it's also a feminine aspect too, which I didn't really think about so much. I thought more poetically as an illustrative thing. But I told her about it and played her some of the music, just friendly, and she was like, "Oh, this is." She responded immediately to the lyrics. "Oh, you actually understand Attila." His voice in this track is pretty obscure.
I know.
But then we got talking about it, and I invited her to write something, based on totally her point of view, not really directing that. I direct a lot of things with the band, especially with the albums, but that was her point of view, and I wanted to bring it in there for a number of reasons. I think it brought a lot of topics to Sun's music that we probably couldn't have presented ourselves without it seeming inappropriate somehow.
Okay.
Feminism. There's no women on the
there
album.
was mansplaining.
Buddhism. Okay, our producer claims to be a Buddhist, but I mean, there's obviously, you don't have to be falling in these categories to talk about these topics, obviously, but here's someone who's like got a different point of view. Plus also illustrating music with liner notes that are also basically philosophical text. and in a way a political text as far as feminism, which I think is one of the most important political topics to talk about after all these violent incidents and religion and disunion of societies and stuff. Really, the feminist talk, not feminism. Well, yeah, women's rights and feminism in that way. So she did that. She wrote that text, and I also think the text is also a bit above most people's heads somehow. When you're listening to a record and read that, this is a little intense, but the music's intense too. So go back through it again, and I don't know how many people really got into it to try and, well, hopefully think about something different. That's all it's for. It's not like a holy text that you have to believe in or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, here's some other ideas that can be connected to this from someone else's perspective. And I think that's really important, this song. Like, here's something that could be quasi-abstract, but then whatever you put on it can be a color or a veneer with it, or a face to it. But we can choose how to display our music beyond the abstract. And how are we going to do that? With Black One, it was like that too. Black One could have been presented like Canon, and Canon could have been presented like Black One, and it would have worked actually. But see what I mean? There's this sort of like this way to present this stuff that has a lot more. It encourages a lot of different ideas, different points of view of this big facet of what it could be. I think it's true with a lot of music. It takes a lot of effort to sort of go there and make those decisions to do. I think that a lot of people don't want to do, but with Sun, it's kind of like, how are we gonna? We can't really, like, each record make the record heavier or slower. These kinds of like physical improvements, that doesn't really make sense. So how do we make it more colorful, more open, more bright? How do we increase the saturation and the luminosity of the ideas? And I thought with Canon, that was one of the most interesting things we did was that text in the whole history of the band. We've used text in other records too, Black One, Grim Robe demos. Monoliths and Dimensions, the lyrics are clearly like a poetic tract, so yeah.
Would you promote, would you support would you promote like other bands to explore their music in a gender perspective?
I wouldn't promote anyone to do anything that they don't believe in, but if it's something they feel is interesting and relevant, then why not? I would promote them not to be intimidated or discouraged from doing that because of the popular opinion or the possibility of rejection of those ideas. That's what I would promote, whatever topic it is.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's freedom, it's music. It's like you could do whatever you want. The only barrier is really like your self-image. Of course, you make music to make a release for someone to listen to, so you always have to be prepared for rejection and things like this, or appreciation, which feels good too. But sometimes you can appreciate the rejection as much, But if you want to, you can be as creative as you want. Why not? What else are you going to do with it? It's an opportunity to say a lot of things or keep it like, Bernhard Günther. It's like completely minimal, no information, totally subjective. Except if you go and read texts by him or interviews with him, which there aren't many, his concept is so strong that it's like the publication itself. It's just it doesn't need to contain all of that conceptual information in text, Sun's in this kind of strange place because we're kind of a metal band. Our records are released in that kind of world where people love to have the packaging and the experience, the tangible experience release, but at the same time, it exists as kind of an experimental art, performance art project, and it's a conceptual thing purely, in some ways. So, just trying to learn different ways to navigate through that.
Okay. So KTL was born for the Kindertoten Lieder drama, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do it.
Noise bombing.
Can I have some more beer on that note? Thank you.
Okay, maybe wait until it's done.
Actually, that lady Giselle who was here, she's the director of Kindertoten Leader.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're traveling in Indonesia together. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
What brings you to Jogja, actually?
To meet him.
Oh.
And meet other people and see different things. But yeah, one of the reasons was to meet Rick here. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Are you guys planning on doing
Maybe.
something?
Yeah. I hope so.
Cool.
I'd love to.
Let's wait for it.
Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers. Mas, boleh minta lagi nggak?
Nice to see you, man.
Okay.
Congratulations on the new record.
Mas Made ada rokok nggak?
Nggak rokok.
Oh, nggak rokok ya? Ya udah deh.
Wow, you did a lot of research.
What? Oh, yeah.
Impressed.
Thank you. Yeah. I did the research after I came back from the concert in Singapore, and then I didn't sleep for.
What concert?
Yeah. Well, my friend bought me tickets to see Coldplay.
Coldplay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But it was free tickets.
Free. That's not enough.
Okay.
You should be paid to see them.
Yeah.
Was it good?
Well, it was because they were big band and lots of lights and very
Yeah, the show was
established.
cool, probably.
Yeah.
The sound was amazing.
Yeah.
The audience was probably like,
Yeah. It was nice. But yeah, I almost missed the flight because I didn't sleep. I read, the interviews.
wow.
She's also playing music too.
What?
She's also playing music.
Just in my bedroom.
Bedroom
Yeah.
bands are the best.
She's playing like a atmospheric
Synth.
ambience music.
Yeah.
Like
Ambient.
Cold Meat Industry stuff.
Yeah. Maybe he
More
can
like
explain.
ambient music is long synth,
Cool.
long melodic.
Yeah, but I suck.
What kind of synth?
I have Arturia microbrute. Oh yeah, it's called Arturia.
Synthesizer.
Yeah, synthesizer.
I like the quality of the speakers they use.
They use JBL.
That's JBL?
No.
By the hotel I'm staying in, it sounds like a low trumpet. It's really the voice is really weird.
They usually custom made like home
Yeah.
speakers.
That's really cool. That happens all the time, every day.
5 times a day.
5 times a day in Bali.
I never experienced that before yesterday.
5. We have a friend from Australia, Zacharias. He's also a writer too from is it Jakarta Post?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jakarta Post. Once he lived on a neighborhood, and his room is close to the mosque.
Oh no!
Every morning at 5 o'clock, so they play like this.
Can you do like a sound complaint?
So he cannot sleep all day. Wake up in the.
It's really loud.
Yeah, 5 p.m.
It's cool.
5 times a day, 5 p.m. If you live in a neighborhood, there is a lot of mosque and small.
Yeah.
So they go together.
Wow.
Loud sound.
Wall of sound.
They usually use this
Yeah, exactly.
this is the
Toa.
Toa.
Yeah,
This one is the old school.
Hardcore.
Oh wow. It's really loud.
I think it's cool.
We even have like a workshop about how we equalizing
Uh-huh.
the azan.
To project further, that's the idea, right? To have it be heard at the furthest distance possible, right?
I think only in Malaysia, yeah, really loud.
Mm-hmm.
Another country can even Malaysia.
In Banyuwangi, there is a festival. It's like a sound system festival. You have to.
In Emirates?
And
So we said UAV?
Yeah, like a sound system festival. There's
Banyuwangi.
some operator.
Oh,
Sound system.
Oh,
Sound
okay.
system rental.
oh,
East Java.
okay.
Sound system rental. They put their song outside.
Yeah.
So which one who get the loudest sound is a winner. So there is a lot of stuff, on a track. They get louded together. They play the music. No quality. The loudest sound. The
Just pure,
pure
The louder, the better.
pure volume.
no equality. Just whoever
Yeah.
which one play the loudest.
It's great.
Yeah. Banyuwangi also.
Did you go to this this thing?
I saw that on the news and
Uh-huh.
I see some of them are my friends, so
Yeah.
I know them.
Yeah.
The loudest thing, if there is maybe 20 sound system rental, you can imagine
Yeah.
what's the sound like.
Yeah.
on the field.
I was in Berlin. I was staying at my friend's house, and right near her house is an old monument to the Berlin Wall. And there's a display there talking about the sound fights they would have between East and West Berlin with the propaganda, with these trucks with these massive speakers on them, on cranes that would go up or point down over the wall to like project propaganda at each
Yeah,
other.
the terrorists.
Really, really massive systems, though. It's like, where are those trucks now? You know?
Yeah.
You have more question? Or?
Sorry. Yeah, so KTL was born for the drama Kinder Totenlieder.
Right.
And why did you decide to, make that a separate, like seriously,
Well, like I said, Giselle Vienne, who was just here, and then she's had to go. She's the director of that piece.
Mm-hmm.
She worked for many years with a friend of mine, Peter Rayberg, who he's known as PETA. He's a computer musician, and they were preparing they were starting to prepare that piece, and she just spoke with him about what he wanted to do with the music, and he was like, "Oh, I'd like to work with Sun. Maybe we can ask them. They're probably too busy to do that." So they did ask, and Sun didn't want to do it, but I was really interested. I hadn't done anything with theater or dance before, and thought it would be an interesting experiment, but it was clearly not a Sun thing. It was a different thing. And at first, we worked on the music together. It was really, really exciting to work with PETA, and we had this really great way of improvising together and making this music. And it was really productive, but it was purely for that piece. We didn't consider it to be a project or a band. We were just making the music for that piece, which we performed live with the piece too. But then some promoters we were friends with and stuff heard about it and heard that we were collaborating. They were like, "Oh, we should do a concert." Like, "Oh, yeah. But with the play, no, why don't you just play?" And we were invited to. The first concert we were invited to play was supporting Throbbing Gristle. It's like, yeah, well, thank you. We'd be happy to do that, but we've never played before. And so we had to come up with a name for it, so we called it KTL, which is just a diminution of Kinder Totenlieder. But then we did a lot of concerts. It was really, really nice. We haven't played so many concerts recently, but we started again. 4 or 5 months ago. We've done 3 or 4 concerts now. But we didn't play for many years. then Peter and I worked on music for several of Giselle's other pieces since then too. So it's a different line, different universe. Yeah, really interesting to do. I was talking to Wakir about this last night. Like, you have so much time to work on the pieces. With theater, at least both of our experiences, we were discussing this. You have like, okay, we're going to do the creation period, which is when they develop the piece, including the music. So the first session is 3 weeks, and then next month you come over for 3 more weeks, and the next one for 3. It's like a lot of time to work on music. I mean, for a musician, you go in a studio, like 2 days is a lot of time to record. You know, it's a luxury, right? Thank you. So that's been pretty interesting to continue with. And part of the reason we're on this trip together is to maybe start thinking about some new ideas for a new piece with Giselle.
Cool.
Yeah, and me. And this other friend we're with, Estelle Hananya, she's a photographer. She's worked a lot with Giselle. She did the photos in Canon, actually, of the band.
Okay.
Of Son. And she's photographed all of Giselle's pieces. And they're working on a book together right now of those photographs. It's really cool. And there's going to be a KTL record with the book and stuff like that. So we're just here to
Find inspiration.
do research or whatever, and just try to discover some new ways or new ideas. Have some new experiences together to inspire. So far, it's been really inspiring. We've just been here 3 days, or been in Indonesia for 3 days. Seems like 2 weeks already.
Before Indonesia, did you go to any other country or directly to Indonesia?
Well, I've been in many places this year already, but this trip was separate too.
Okay.
Yeah, this is like its own thing. But I've been in, I travel all the time. So.
Cool. And I want to ask about the process when Malefic recorded for Bathory Erzsébet, like, because he was claustrophobic, right?
That's what he said.
Oh, that's what he said.
That's what he told us, but I don't know if he really was, because he really... I mean, anyone's going to be claustrophobic when you're in a wooden coffin that's nailed shut.
Yeah.
I mean...
Yeah.
It's kind of a... It's not really a situation you should be in.
Yeah. Yeah.
His performance was great, the way he reacted to that.
How was the process, like the recording
Process
instruments?
was, we called him up out of the blue because I was a fan of Sather, and just talked about, oh, hey, we're making a record. We're recording pretty close to where you live. Actually, he lives in east of Los Angeles, and we were recording in east of Los Angeles, another town. We heard he lived around, well, whatever, that region. And I don't know where I got his phone number, but in those days, I mean, there was email and stuff, but you still called people.
Yeah.
So we called him up, and it was like, we love your music. You want us to come? We're recording a record. You want to come to the studio and say hello? I think it's close to you. He's like, yeah, I'll come over. I'm like, okay. And then he showed up, and we talked a bunch. And he, at that time, I don't think he really had a image of how his music might be perceived by people, by listeners who were not from the deep black metal underground. Like, referencing My Bloody Valentine never happened. But I was talking to him about Kevin Shields, like, oh, I think your guitar playing really reminds me of Loveless. Blah. He's like, what are you talking about? You mean Loveless from France? Like, no, I mean My Bloody Valentine, Loveless. I don't think it sounds like the French Loveless. And he got kind of excited that it was, we were complimenting him, and he's an isolationist, you know. He lived, at the time, he lived in his grandfather's basement, recorded by himself, in his, like you, in the bedroom by himself. Had all this, I mean, he described how he recorded his stuff. It was really, really creative, like how he would record using CD players with CD burners and like bouncing the CD burners and stuff like that. Anyway, so we just you know, son, when we're recording a record, often we just invite people to come to the studio and let's see what happens. Let's just try something. Let's improvise, or maybe we have an idea right at that moment, let's just try it. And so he came in, first he was playing guitar, some guitar stuff, and then he decided to do some vocals on the Immortal cover we did. That was a fun way to connect or whatever. And then we had the harebrained idea of the next day or 2 days later going to a funeral place and buying a coffin. Like, let's just get it and see what happens. So we went and bought this thing in the morning and brought it to the studio, and then he came to the studio that night, and we tried to do a more like ritualized recording session with robes and makeup and stuff.
Cool.
And then eventually later in the night it turned into, the guy who had the studio had a hearse parked in the back, which is a hearse is a brand of car in the U.S. that's used for carrying the coffin from the funeral to the graveyard that kind of burial thing. It was an old one owned by like a goth band, painted purple or whatever. And then so first we're like, why don't you do some vocals for this track? And it's kind of a Bathory cover, but you know, it's just one riff slowed down or something. It's like, I love the way this sounds. We're like, well, we got this coffin. You can mic up the coffin with some like piezo and with different. It'd be pretty interesting to put the coffin in the hearse, also mic outside the coffin in the hearse. He's like, I don't know about that. Kind of like, I'm claustrophobic. It's kind of beyond that. But maybe you could try it, because if you are claustrophobic, you know, how are the vocals going to sound?
Yeah.
Then you're like really in a fear situation.
Cool.
Then he agreed to do it, and then he let us like nail it shut when he was inside.
He let you like. He
got in, and then we're like, well, okay, now we're gonna nail the top down, because it was a cheap coffin made of pine.
Okay.
We're like, it's not gonna be the same if you could just come out.
No, that's true. Yeah.
So we did that, and then he did 2 takes. Actually, the first take, he's like, I'm sweating. You know, I don't like this at all. Like, can you do one more take? This feeling, you know, we're not going to be able to, no one can do this right now. This is going to be really good. I mean, it's going to be really strong. I wouldn't say good, or probably, I hope. It's like, yeah, okay, I'll do one more. And he did it. It's like that performance is totally nerve-wracking. It's fucked.
Yeah.
Then he got out and was like, I'm going home. I can't. But then later he, you know, we did a bunch of concerts together and stuff. It was a cool collaboration while it lasted with him. We did a big tour in Europe for like 6 weeks. It was his first time in Europe ever. First time on tour, first time in Europe. He had never really left California before. So, wow. And then did 1 or 2 small tours in the U.S. and then he decided he hated us and like quit. There was some misunderstanding with Southern Lord. Yeah.
Okay. I see.
And it's cool now. I saw he's playing concerts now, or he's doing some acoustic versions out there, and he's doing a long tour in the U.S. I'd love to see that. He's a great guitar player. It's really like, that's the thing I like about his project. You know? Not so much the image or the vocals or the like references, but the guitar playing. It's really deconstructed, really cool way. So that's that story.
Okay, so this is a question from my editor from Vice. From Vice.
Indonesia
Yeah,
or from
Vice
England?
Indonesia.
Okay.
Vice Indonesia. Hah?
Yudis tak kasih tahu.
Yudis siapa?
Yudhistira.
Yudhistira Agato. Oh iya. Oh iya.
Kamu bilang itu.
We okay. What do you think about the development of Doom in these past 5 years?
I don't care.
Okay. Okay. And
I love candle mass. You want to talk about Doom?
okay. And then the second question from Vice is
What kind of trainers do you wear?
They want to go here, but
yeah, what are your projects after Canon?
With Sun?
Yeah, with Sun and then with you individually or other projects.
My big project with Sun right now is I'm making an art film
Art
about
film?
Sun. And we've done 2 shoots so far at these very special concerts. One we did in this one concert in Italy we did in September last year. Was in a plaza in the center of the world's largest labyrinth, which is a bamboo forest. And it's a Masonic building with a really interesting architecture. Anyway, we did this concert in the plaza in front of a pyramid, and we had a 11-person film crew. And then we did a second shoot just 2 weeks ago, or a week and a half ago. Sun played in London at the Barbican Theatre, this amazing, beautiful place, and we did a second shoot. So that's my next project with Sun, is working on this. I've done some editing on the first shoot and stuff. It's still really early with this thing, but so that's a kind of new area that we haven't worked in before. Yeah, and then I'm working on a record with Randall Dunn, this producer I've
Okay.
worked with for a long time. I'm not sure what it is yet.
Oh, okay.
There's a few other LPs that are coming out that were recorded a few years ago.
Oh, really?
Like there's another record of Mazaran I, this band I do with Oren Mbarchi and KG
Yeah.
Hino. That's coming out on this label from California that's run by Stranded Records. And there's also a record of this other band I do with Oren Mbarchi
Yeah.
with Attila Chihar called Grave Temple, which is coming out on a Finnish label called Svart. And that's coming out, I think, in 2 months. And Nazarana comes out in the summer, I think. I'm not really sure. Yeah. So those are the next records that are coming out. And KTL is, like I said, there's this project that Giselle Bien and Estelle Hanani are working on, this book project for Shelter Press, this French label, this book project of photography of Giselle Bien's theater pieces. And there's going to be a KTL record of music that we made for a piece that was never published before that comes out with that. So,
Okay.
yeah.
And lastly, JR from Public Guild says hello.
Okay.
Yeah, he's in Bandung
lives
right
here,
now.
yeah?
Yeah, in
He's
Indonesia.
releasing my project
Oh,
also.
cool.
And also he's releasing Aluto Dulu.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah,
making a record
Matthew
label.
was like, you should call him.
Yeah.
But I
He's
didn't.
in
I didn't get his phone number. But he's not here.
In Bandung.
Yeah, he's in Bandung,
But he lives
Sometime
here, right?
Nah, not here.
Indonesia.
Oh, I thought he lived in Yogya.
No,
Oh no.
Sometimes he can hear.
yeah,
Okay.
occasionally.
Yeah. How?
Because he's releasing now I had a record label that releasing tape, and the tape is produced into.
Okay. Oh, right.
Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
only thing.
How long are you staying in Indonesia?
Until the 12th.
12th of April.
April,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So another week. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you going to visit Jakarta?
No.
Yeah. Don't. Don't. Don't.
I see how it works here. It's like every other place. You got your New York and your LA, right? Or your
Yeah.
San Francisco. And, You're Osaka
Yeah.
and you're Tokyo. I think that's. No, we'll go to Solo.
Ah, you should
Oh,
go
it-
to Lokananta.
Yeah.
This is the only this is the full record labels, and they
Yeah,
have
he was
a lot
telling me last
of,
night. Yeah,
good.
it's like that.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
where they make the. Or he's making tapes now.
Yeah, so vinyl.
Yeah, yeah. I want to try and check it out. They have old record presses that
Yeah.
don't work anymore. That's
Oh,
rare.
Yeah.
They don't have it anymore.
They sold it.
So good.
Long time ago.
Yeah.
To Singaporean Korea.
Oh, really? That stuff's worth a lot of money these days. Those presses. There's a new company making them in
No.
in Canada.
You making here.
You can make here. I can
Huh?
run for you.
You making here.
What?
Making pressing
Pressing plant here?
Because
together with all. with
Not good business.
It's a lot of investment. These things. It's like buying an old race car from the '60s and trying to fix it with nothing that no parts exist anymore. So you have to buy other broken ones. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a company in Canada making new ones now. I
Yeah,
heard.
in Finland as well. No.
Finland?
I don't know.
Really?
Not Finland. I don't remember.
Somewhere in
Somewhere in
Scandinavia.
East Europe.
East Europe.
Yeah. You know Rabi?
Rabi
Rabi Piani?
No? Oh.
Producer.
yeah.
He's from Berlin. Like he told
I mean, I've never met him. I know who he is.
Morphine Records.
Yeah.
Poor,
Yeah, he told me.
poor producer.
Poor producer. But he's got to do that LP. You told me because you wrote his
Yeah.
record label.
If you not do it, I fight with him.
Yeah. it's a threat.
Okay, I think
Well,
that's
we have
that's the end
photo
of my
booth.
interview.
We want
Oh yeah, keren dan oh yes,
Cool
Korean famous.
and
cool and famous.
What is it?
Korean
Cool
famous.
and
And
famous.
famous
You should.
for Outcast.
For
For
Alka.
Outcast.
Serious?
Yeah, it's the art for
Yeah, it's our project.
our project.
Yeah, it's like photo booth like cool and famous for Outcast.
I like the font.
Retro.
Yeah. Retro future.
I like the flowers. Chinese flowers.
They're natural, right?
Natural plastic.
Natural, yeah.
Naturally plastic.
Oh, can I have a picture for my friend?
Another one?
Yeah, just for my friend.
You had a lot of
Yeah, just you probably.
What about this one? Give this one to your friend.
Maybe there's me.
Yeah, well, your friend likes you, right?
I think.
Exactly.
No, probably I won't terrorize her. Yeah, with Manus, actually. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, good with your red face.
Yeah, I'm totally burned.
Wait, no.
I got fucked up. Look at my arms.
Okay, wait. I have to change
It's
the.
too early in the year for a son.
Baterainya habis.
Ya, apa?
Well, is it your
Papernya habis.
Nah, tadi kan
Okay, nice one.
is it your first time in
boleh dong,
Southeast Asia?
Huh?
Apa?
Boleh
It's your first time in Southeast
Minta
Asia.
satu. Oh iya boleh.
I went to Hong Kong.
Alright.
That's as close as I've come to here. And I went to Taiwan.
Taiwan.
But I never went in Thai or Malaysia or Singapore.
Boleh boleh.
Wow,
It's your first time
Yeah.
in this region.
Yeah, totally.
Did you perform in Taiwan?
Yes, in Taipei. That was cool. It's cool. I'm glad to come here. Yeah, man. I can try and, I mean, if we talk, maybe I can try and figure out some support on my side in France and stuff like that.
For sure, we don't have money.
I guess we have to then. No, but we can write a letter from a official foundation. You know, it gets you through the door.
For sure. We have the French, French cultural center.
Oh, the Institut Français. Yeah, they help. I've never gotten help from them individually, but with Giselle Vienne's work, she has a lot of cultural support from France.
Do you have like permanent resident in France?
I am a resident. It's not permanent. I have to do it every 10 years.
Every 10 years.
But it's
So at least you can represent French.
if they want.
It's easy to.
No, it's true. Yeah, it's true. I have the next thing. It would be a passport. But yes, yeah. So, and there's some like USA stuff too. Maybe not anymore, but or not in the next few years. But anyway, Giselle, her company, her theater company, has a lot of cultural support in France. I've never done it myself directly for my work, but I'm trying to. I know it exists. It's possible. I just my kind of philosophy. I've always done like DIY with music, essentially. But we could look at that. The Institut Français, I think, is very supportive in certain things.
Yes,
At least they can help with flights and stuff. You work with them?
a few.
Yeah.
Times.
Yeah. It's okay?
It's okay.
Yeah.
They're good.
Yeah. What did they do? How did they help?
Well, we do this collaborative exhibition projects, photography.
Oh, okay. With French photographers.
Yes.
You should meet Estelle, the lady I was talking about, the photographer. She made the photographs on Oren Ambarchi's last 2 albums. That's her work.
Ah, all right.
Yeah, Hubris and Audience of One. Hubris is a lot of eyeballs for a mannequin.
Yeah.
Audience of One is
So he or she's coming along with you.
no, that was Giselle. Estelle is here. She's here. She's feeling ill today from jet lag and stuff, so she was going to come, but she's not feeling well.
So you get jet lag too.
Yeah. Well, I've just been here 2 days, so, but this helps.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay, can I take a picture with you? Hermanos?
20,000.
10% for me.
Yeah, it's talk to my manager.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, one more.
One for me.
Yeah.
One for me, tadi 3.
Okay, 3. Okay.
Try to cross your
bayar
eyes.
sama aku. Okay, one more.
I like this. This is better than the cell phone.
Okay.
Cross your eyes this time.
1, 2, 3. Okay.
Wow, this is kind of extreme.
Okay, this is for my friend.
Oh, your friend's gonna be really happy.
Insert it in EP.
A signature
Signature, yeah.
from an artist.
To Anita.
That costs lots.
Yeah, this is gonna be worth a lot of money.
I know.
Maybe like 10,000.
Yeah.
What's your friend called?
To Anida.
Huh?
Anida. ANIDA.
Then it's $200 on
Yeah,
eBay
DA.
tomorrow.
Next week, 300.
No, tonight. Next year you can hear 10,000.
He has to sign too.
Yeah. Okay. Jadi mau.
Wah, marah itu gue.
Oke.
Yudis nanya
Apa?
cara dia sekali.
Serius?
Si Yudis nanya.
You want
Oh,
another
nanya
interview
apa?
on Skype?
Oh iya.
Skype?
Skype.
Bilang kalau aku.
Yeah, I have Skype.
Skype. Yeah.
Bilang. Tadi bilang.
Friend
Dia
from
bukan.
Jakarta.
Nggak tahu.
Oh, wants to talk on Skype?
No.
No thanks.
They have to come.
That's nice though. Which one is the crossed eyes? Oh, you got that one.
Tahu nggak bilang?
Aku bilang ke editorku. Aku nggak bilang Yudis. Iya, terus wait. Aku ngomong ke Yudis deh.
Thanks for the interview. That was good. I'm impressed.
Thank you. Oh my god. Yeah, I'm recording. I'm showing my friends the recording that you're impressed.
Padang.
Tenggelam, tukang tenggelam.
Dating kak, juang